So this week on Transfermarkt, we are picking our player of the season in all of Europe's top divisions. You can head over to our website through or the link in this description of this video, shall I say, or just head over to transfermarkt.co.uk.com.us. Wherever you are in the world, you're more likely to find a domain with your name and language on it. Once you head there, you can obviously pick which league you want to vote in, and then from there you can vote for your goalkeeper, your defender, your midfielder, and your striker, which is what we'll be focusing on in this video. We're focusing on the Premier League particularly here, and there are some really impressive forward players who've done the business this season. I'll put them up on the screen now. We're looking, of course, at Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa, Phil Foden at Manchester City, Bukayo Saka at Arsenal, Mohamed Salah at Liverpool, Alexander Isak at Newcastle, and Erling Haaland at Manchester City. Guys, let's kick things off from the top. Ewan, Ollie Watkins, we've talked about a few Aston Villa players this week, and perhaps more than any other, he's kind of stole the limelight with his goals and assists for Villa, and the sheer quantity of goal contributions, as they're now called, really forces him into this category, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's 32 goal contributions in the Premier League, which is the top of any player. Most assists in the league with 13, obviously contributed loads of goals as well. He's been such a key part of how Villa plays, unbelievable exploiting space and behind the opposition defences with his pace, and his finishing this season has been excellent as well. He's probably England's second choice striker going into the Euros. I think there's a bit of a debate maybe in January, February when Ivan Toney came back, would it be Watkins or Toney who would play back up to Harry Kane? But look at their form, how it's contrasted in the last few weeks and months of the seasons, then Ollie Watkins will be that guy. He's been so important to a Villa side who look destined to qualify for the Champions League, and he's been a real kind of talisman for them this season, pop up with so many important goals, and he's really been the kind of figurehead behind their push for Champions League football under Emery.
Yeah, he's the third Aston Villa player on our list of contenders for player of the season, if memory serves me right. We obviously have Martinez in goals, and we also have Douglas Luiz in midfield, but Ben, Ollie Watkins, just a perfect example of how Unai Emery has come into that team, and it's kind of been evolution rather than revolution. He's just raised the bar so much with a lot of these players, and to the extent that Watkins is obviously knocking on the door for the England squad and may play quite a significant role at Euros this summer.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be England's second choice at the Euros. He's had a great season, and the fact that if you look up until just over a week ago when Haaland scored 4 against Wolves, before that game, Ollie Watkins had a genuine chance of being the top assister in the Premier League and the top scorer in the Premier League. It's probably unlikely that he's now going to get 6 goals in the final game and catch Haaland, but he's going to probably be the top assister this season in the Premier League. His ability to stretch defences is superb. It's also more impressive when you take into account that he's not the penalty taker at the club. Penalties taken up him probably quite rightly. I think Villa fans will tell you from his record from the spot, if he was still penalty taker this season, you could probably add on another 3 or 4 goals at least to that tally. He's been superb and a real contender for this award. He wouldn't quite get it for me, but he's very close. Had a superb season, and it looks like a team are going to get Champions League football next season.
Yeah, well, from an outsider for this category to one who's maybe the nailed-on favourite, maybe not nailed on, but probably leading the race right now is, of course, Phil Foden at Manchester City. Ben, we actually talked about him, I think, in a video near the start of the season, talking about how he's kind of come of age and how Pep Guardiola is now finally beginning to play him. I mean, obviously, always played him, but he's now finally starting games, he's finishing games, he's not kind of been the first player brought off, and especially during that spell when Kevin De Bruyne was obviously out injured, it was Foden who really stepped up as the main man there. And as a result, he's obviously in the running for not only the striker or the forward of the season in the Premier League, but also probably one of the front runners for player of the season in general.
Yeah, I think as you touched on, it's really been a coming of age for Phil Foden this season. We've seen how long it can take in this Man City team, players to actually come through. Pep normally likes to filter them in slowly. You even look at Rodri, for example, the first 2 seasons, he was there. He wasn't a starter when Fernandinho was still at the club, and now he's probably the most important player. I think the De Bruyne injury probably helped Foden because he was able to come into those central areas for the majority of the first half of the season. And he's been superb. 17 Premier League goals this season. He's been the star man. I mean, to watch, I don't think there's many better players. Pep Guardiola said recently he thinks he's the best player in the Premier League. He's certainly up there. And yeah, for me, he wins this category just for what he's done for who look like are potentially probably going to be Premier League champions come Sunday. he's been the star man in the attacking areas and being a brilliant player. And yeah, Foden for me would get the award in this category.
Yeah, and if Man City are to go on and win the Premier League, which now looks likely, is Phil Foden the man who should characterise or symbolise that team's success?
Yeah, it's quite not a transformation. We've talked about his minutes in previous seasons. He's became one of the most important players this season, second most minutes in all competitions for Man City behind Rodri. It's quite a parallel to obviously the Champions League final last season when he obviously started on the bench. He's become such a key player. I think he's matured really well on and off the pitch. His technical ability is ridiculous. There's not many players who possess that level of technical ability in the league. Probably Martin Odegaard is one of the other ones you look at, and obviously Kevin De Bruyne. He's so good. I think he's obviously better when he's coming inside. People always talk about what's Foden's best role, position. I don't think it really matters that much. If you play him off the right, you've always given that freedom to move inside and get in those pockets of space. He's been just as effective as playing as a number 10. He's an incredible player. He's probably only going to get better with age. He's probably got another 4 or 5 years until he reaches his peak as well. So it's kind of scary thought.
Yeah, it certainly is. Another young player, another young England player, of course, is up for the running in this competition, in this category rather, is Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. And Ewan, maybe one who's actually beginning to kind of fly under the radar a wee bit. People have kind of gotten used to how good Saka is, and we kind of forget that Arsenal have gone almost the entirety of this season without a standout striker. I know Kai Havertz has kind of filled in. I know he's kind of settling in quite well at Arsenal, but the reason that Havertz has really had the time and space to develop and get comfortable with Mikel Arteta's team is that guys like Bukayo Saka have been there ready to step up with the goals and assists in his place. Is that a fair thing? Is that a fair way to look at it this season? Do you think, Ewan?
Yeah, well, if Arsenal's front three, the left wing position's changed at times this season, the centre forward position's changed at times this season, but you always rely on Bukayo Saka to be starting on the right. He's incredibly consistent for a player who's still relatively young. You know what you're going to get from him every week. He's also works really hard off the ball in terms of pressing and winning the ball back. He's really important to Arsenal. There as well, his durability is really good. He's seldom injured. He's such an important player for Arsenal. He's probably their figurehead most important player in terms of being an academy graduate coming through the ranks. He's the kind of player that when people think of Arsenal, they probably think of Bukayo Saka first. An incredible player.
Yeah, Ben, what have you made of Saka this season? There's so many Arsenal players up for contention in these awards this season. Where does Saka rate amongst them? And of course, how does he rate in terms of all Premier League players, I suppose, as well this season?
Yeah, I think he's got to be right up there. 25 goal contributions this season, equaling his best record already from last season. He's obviously got another game to go on Sunday. What I think makes that more impressive, that stat that he's equaled that from last season, is he's so much more in the limelight now, and players know how good he is. He gets doubled up on every week. He gets kicked to smithereens every week. I know there's people joking about him limping and stuff, but I think most people would be the amount of kicks he gets. He's been superb. He's just Mr. Consistent for Arsenal, and I think, like you said, because he's been so good for so long now, people do take it for granted a little bit that Saka's gonna turn up in, and he also turns up in big games. Scored in both North London derbies this season. Scored against Liverpool. He's just Arsenal's threat every week. It's always about how can we get the ball to Bukayo Saka and get him running at a fullback. He's such an intelligent player as well. His decision making is superb. He's so clever at getting his body in the right position with a defender. Maybe when he actually shoots and stuff, not technically as good on the eye as someone like Odegaard or Foden. In terms of how he uses his body, such a clever footballer. And yeah, would just miss out on the award for me. But another incredible season for Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Another player just like him, actually, who plays a similar position and a similar role for his team, is Mohamed Salah at Liverpool, who's the next player in this category. Ben, we've talked about a few Liverpool players who've been up for nominations across the categories this season, and I guess much like them, Salah's a player who deserves to be nominated, obviously done tremendously well, but due to Liverpool's kind of season fizzling out, he's probably not going to be able to compete with some of the main contenders and the favourites in this category.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a strange one for me, Salah, this season. So he's got 28 direct goal contributions, 18 goals, 10 assists, which is amazing. But for me, he's transformed more into a bit of a moments player. I think there's been signs of his brilliance, and it has been absolute brilliance for the last 4 or 5 years, starting to fade. But he's still, even when he's not playing his best, he gets goals and he gets assists. I think there's been a number of occasions I've watched him this season, and he hasn't actually played very well. But he's gone on to score 2 goals or get a goal or an assist. I remember the the Merseyside derby a long time ago. I thought he had a really poor game, and they won 2-0 and he scored 2 goals. So I think Salah has transformed to make himself just key in the moments now as he does reach sort of an older age now, 32. But yeah, you can't argue with his numbers, and I think that's why he deserves to be in the category. But for me, it's not been his best season. He's not been at the levels we've seen in the past. So for me, he would just miss out on the award. But yeah, deserves to be in contention.
Yeah, I guess it's a mark of such a fantastic player that Salah's maybe not at his peak anymore, and maybe not having the best season of his career. But even a Salah who's at 90 or 80%, capacity is still comfortably one of the best forwards in the Premier League.
Yeah, he's probably judged a little bit kind of harshly off his own success over the past few seasons. Because I do agree with Ben. I don't think he's had his best campaign. Certainly since coming back from the AFCON and that injury he picked up, he's not hit the levels that he was at kind of the first half of the season, and that's ultimately quite costly for Liverpool. There's always that quite public kind of disagreement with Jurgen Klopp against West Ham away and his subsequent comments. But he's an incredible player, Mo Salah, but he's not had his best season. But you can't argue with his numbers. Even if he's not playing well, he does pop up for a goal and assist. Be interesting to see if he stays at Liverpool next season, what role he plays under Arne Slot, because there's obviously quite a lot of talk about maybe a couple of changes in that area of the pitch. He's entering his last year of his contract as well, so be a big summer for Mo Salah, I think.
Yeah, well, from a player who's potentially been farewell to the Premier League, someone who's said hello to this season and said hello to it with a bang, as of course Alexander Isak at Newcastle. There's a lot of players on this list who are inside forwards, who are maybe number 10s, false number 9s, but Alexander Isak is a pure number 9, and not mistaken, only Erling Haaland has scored more goals than him so far this season. It's clear why he's on this list, but why don't you just explain to people who maybe haven't been watching English football this season why Alexander Isak has been so good for Newcastle?
Yeah, he's been Newcastle's star player this season. Obviously, Anthony Gordon's had a great season, but Isak is the main man. It's actually quite interesting because at the start of the season, Eddie Howe sometimes rotated between Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson at number 9. There was always that talk about how can you accommodate them both into the same team? Can you move Isak off to the left, which happened a couple of times. But as a number 9, I think he's got absolutely everything to his game. He's an incredible finisher, which I think goes under the radar sometimes. Wherever he's in that position where he's 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, you always back him to score. He's quick. He's strong, he's got a good touch, he's skillful. He's pretty much got everything you want from a modern striker, and I'd be quite tempted to give him the award just for his performances from Newcastle United. They've had a difficult season with injuries as well. They've not hit the last season. But in terms of individual display, I think he's actually unbelievable this season. He'd be right up there with Ollie Watkins and Phil Foden for my vote this year.
Yeah, Ben, a lot of the people on this list, particularly among the forwards, play for big teams. They play for teams that dominate every game, play for teams that get a whole load of chances. But with all due respect to Newcastle, and I say this because they've obviously gone through a lot of injuries and a lot of trouble this season in terms of players coming and going in terms of form, the fact that Isak has outscored almost everyone on this list is testament to just how good he is in front of goal, that he's probably working off less balls into the box than a lot of these players, but he's outscored all but one of them.
Yeah, I think you summed it up quite well. He's a real all-round striker. He's got so many qualities to his game. He's also particularly good at that snapshot from the edge of the box with no backlift, taking defenders by surprise. And the fact that he's got 20 Premier League goals for a team ravaged by injuries, he's missed a few games himself as well, let's not forget. But a lot of those attacking players around him, there hasn't been much consistency. I think Anthony Gordon's played most of the season, but in those other areas, it's been different players every week, which makes it difficult as a striker because it's harder to predict patterns of play, when the ball's going to be coming in, etc. So to still rack up 20 goals, mightily impressive. And he's one of the top strikers, not only in the Premier League, in the world right now for me. I think just because of Foden playing for a team that's title challenging and potentially going to win the Premier League, he would just win it over Isak for me. But yeah, another worthy contender.
Yeah, well, certainly last but certainly not least, rather, should I say, is of course Erling Haaland at Manchester City, who's had a fascinating season, outscored everyone else on this list, probably walking to another Premier League title, but at points this season has had a lot of question marks thrown at him, quite some high profile wins, compared him to a League Two striker, which obviously ludicrous. But Ben, does that kind of point to maybe us almost getting used to the brilliance of Erling Haaland? These question marks can even come up despite the fact that you look at him on paper and you look at him for most weeks for Manchester City, these comfortably are the best number 9 in the world, or at least the best number 9 in the Premier League, and obviously up there with the very best around the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary, isn't it, that a player who scored 25 goals in 28 games and is Premier League Golden Boot winner, and I would say probably from what I hear, he wouldn't be a contender for most people if you're looking at the sort of top 3-4 players for the overall award of Premier League Player of the Season. It is just what we've become used to. I also do think you need to factor in with Man City, they're such a good team, and they were also such a good team before him, that because of his role where he doesn't have a lot of touches on the ball, and he is just there basically to add that final touch and get them goals. He just goals really, isn't he? He doesn't provide a lot in terms of link-up play. We do expect a high number of goals from him, and because he hasn't got 36, which was ridiculous what he got last season, I think most people probably would edge towards not actually giving this award to him. But obviously he has to be in contention again, and we can't take for granted we've got a striker who's just also 25 goals in 28 games. It's an incredible record for any striker across history. Deserves to be in, yeah, but for those reasons I mentioned, he'll probably just miss out on the final award for me.
Yeah, do you think that's a fair way of looking at it? Compared to anyone else, Haaland would be having this season of a career, but compared to his own high standards, he's maybe dropped off a little bit this season.
Yeah, because it'd be almost impossible to kind of replicate his achievements last season, not just individually, but collectively. City winning their first ever treble, and the amount of goals that Haaland scored last season was scary. And I think it's true, the Erling Haaland you have at Manchester City is quite different from the Erling Haaland you had at Borussia Dortmund or Salzburg or Molde, but that's just how City play. City are so good in build-up, we don't really need Haaland to be getting involved in that. We'd rather kind of have him high up the pitch and kind of a predator in the box, and that's what he is. I think he's actually better. He's all around plays better than sometimes you see at City, just because they don't really involve him in that phase of play. And he's a top player, but like Ben said, you probably wouldn't even get in the top 3 for Player of the Year despite scoring 25 league goals, just due to kind of performances of other players, and maybe the standards that we judge Haaland on just based on his numbers across his whole career. But that's probably slightly unfair on him personally, because he is doing what he's there to do, ultimately just score goals to win City trophies, and looks like they're going to win kind of the most important one this season in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure he'll be happy with that, even if he doesn't win the Transfermarkt Player of the Year award. But we'll see. He's won it before, and he's happily gloated about it. So we'll see what happens if he wins it again this time around. You can, of course, let us know if you think it should be Erling Haaland, if you think it should be Watkins, Saka, Foden, Salah, or Alexander Isak. You can let us know in the comments below. But more importantly, head to the description, click on the link, head over to Transfermarkt, and place your votes for the goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, striker, and Player of the Year in the Premier League. And of course, you can go have a look at all the other top leagues around Europe as well. But before that, like this video, subscribe, and until next time, we'll speak to you soon.